All right, guys, so the series continues of, in my opinion, the best muscle building exercises for various body parts. I think we're on number 4 or something. Numbers don't matter. And this one is for side delts. So I was thinking about doing it just for delts, but then it's like that, in the bodybuilding world, again, if you're, Mrs. Jones just trying to get some metabolic output, or even if maybe make the argument of you're an athlete, or something like that, where you're thinking more big motions, push type things. You might not need to specialize rear delt, side delt, front delt. But in the physique development world, again, all of this is towards, having the best possible physique, the most possible muscle you can have. Obviously, everyone within the bodybuilding community will agree that, it's worth having individual exercises, something for rear delts, for side delts, for front delts. So I figured this was the best way to go about it, is giving my favorite for each. So if you guys haven't watched already, I always recommend going back and watching one of the very first videos I posed that goes a little bit more in depth into what makes a great exercise. And as you guys know, I'm really, really, really big on principles. If you understand the principles of how to build an exercise, then you're less likely to be confused as like, oh, well, people have always said this is the best, or people have blah, 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 or this seems to make sense, or this doesn't seem to make sense. If you have principles, you literally have those always exist, and then when you're come across an exercise, you can just sift them through those principles, and through that sifting process, hopefully you can figure out to an extent for yourself, does this or does this not make sense? And again, nothing's black and white. So again, if you watch this and I give you, okay, here's my top 1, 2, and then here's maybe my 3rd or 4th, where these more traditional exercises sometimes fit in. It doesn't make those bad. You'll just see, well, maybe these mark of my 3 big parameters. These check all 3 in those boxes, and these one maybe only check 2. That doesn't mean it can't grow muscle. It just means, well, I'd rather do this one over that one if I have that option. Sometimes you don't. It's not a big deal. It's not the end of the world. So anyway, again, just the quickest overview, my big 3 principles for building exercises for hypertrophy is alignment. So again, how well does it target the muscle? So lines of force aligning with the fibers that we're trying to target. And how well does it align with the joints involved? Meaning if there's some idea of force should go through a joint in a certain way that's not going to hurt that joint, at least more than it should, or put stress on that joint more than it should or is necessary to get tension to that muscle, does it adhere to joints as well too? The next I'll say is bracing. So again, I use the example of leg press as one of the most simple to understand, where if you have something to push into an opposition, some of this can cross over a little bit into stability. So the less stuff you have to manage as well too can be kind of a component of bracing. But again, it would be the example of a leg press without the back pad. How much could you leg press if there was literally no back pad? It would drop off maybe 1/10 of what you could actually leg press otherwise, because you have something unmoving to push into. You don't have to stabilize your torso. You don't have to stabilize your hips. You can push in there. If it unmoves, it's going to give you so much more force or output production, and that's the same for every single exercise. And last is profiles. And again, profile is, the idea of what range of motion are you training, and does the load match what your body is capable of doing in that range of motion. Since we're doing laterals, this is a great example where, again, if I have my arm at my side starting with a lateral raise, if you're doing a dumbbell or using a dumbbell, because that dumbbell is essentially aligned, the line of force, the line of pull of that dumbbell straight up and down with gravity is lined up straight through the shoulder joint. That means that moment arm, which again is the distance from the axis of that line of force, is near 0. So it's moment arm times the load, which equates to torque. Torque is what goes through the joints the muscles have to manage. So if the torque's at 0, I'm just essentially going to say how much the muscle is working. The muscle has nothing here and is really, really hard here. So again, that's not, if I had to put on like what your side delts are capable of doing, let's just talk about this range of motion, this 90 degrees from the side to here. If anything, they might get slightly weaker to the top. I don't think it's super, super drastic, because I don't think this is quite a fully shortened or fully contracted side delt. So again, if there's 90 degrees of range of motion, the load, if anything, should go from heaviest at the bottom, somewhere around heaviest, to lighter at the top, some amount of lighter. I don't think the exact amount matters a whole lot. That's going to vary from person to person. So again, the dumbbell does the exact opposite of that. So that's one of my biggest knocks on traditional delt exercises or delt raises, is the profile. The profile is one of the biggest problems with traditional ones, meaning it's generally the opposite of what it should be. So When picking my top 2 exercises, which if you guys have skipped ahead, you've already seen. If you're watching this, you haven't skipped ahead, obviously. That's, if I'm breaking down the biggest things, the number one missing thing for most traditional delt exercises. And again, if you watch through this video, sometimes I'll have more traditional movements, whether it's a press or whatever, because they make sense. They fit the parameters. Sometimes exercises that have been done for a million years are great. Sometimes there's just glaring things to me that make no sense. I don't see how anyone can argue having a profile for that bad for a dumbbell lateral raise is beneficial. So using a cable, setting up a cable, which you guys will hear me explain a little bit more in the next little segment, allows for a better profile. If you look at the other two, the thing that you can't take away from dumbbell raises done properly is alignment is easily adjusted. So it's easy to make sure that your shoulder joint lines up, your elbow isn't overly bent, turning it into an internal-external rotation exercise. It's easy to make sure it lines up with the joint, lines up with the fibers of the front delt by adjusting your torso position, your degrees of internal-external rotation of the shoulder joint. So dumbbells can be aligned perfectly. That's not anything that the cables have over them. But then bracing is another thing. So I'm not putting it on the list at all, but if you just wanted to change traditional dumbbell lateral raises to make them a better exercise, I would say just do them on a bench with your chest. So if I have an incline bench that's, let's say, inclined to 80 degrees, don't get married to that angle, and put your chest into that, whether you're kneeling on the bench or just standing on the bench. Then you've fixed bracing. So again, that point in time, you have that to push into, that to use as a reference or a gauge. The ground is unmoving. So as you raise up, as long as all the joints in between, meaning the issue why people should do them on a bench as opposed to standing, if you watch people really get after dumbbell lateral raises, it turns into a total body exercise. I mean, you can literally see people bouncing at things. I do it too, even subconsciously. That's why I like to do them lying down. It just takes out stuff that I can mess up, even if I'm not trying to mess it up. But you'll see people literally making a little bit of a calf raise. Their knees bend, their hips bend, their torso moves back and forth. You can't argue anything moving other than just the shoulder joint is something else moving that dumbbell. So again, if you wanted to make traditional dumbbell lateral raises a better exercise, then just do them seated, again, with your chest into a bench, whether you're kneeling or standing on it. And then you've got 2 out of the 3 really good. You've got good alignment, you've got good bracing, and the only thing really missing from it then is profiles. If you wanted to fix this on your own, so someone's going to say, you'll see the next 2 exercises are cables. What if you don't have cables? The 2 options that make the most sense, one, I'll give you the best option, is get a spotter, a training partner. So meaning if you have a dumbbell that's a more appropriate load from the bottom, the advanced technique is someone can apply a little bit of pressure from the bottom. So again, if you have a 15-pound dumbbell that's actually challenging here, but it's caked down here, someone can apply additional force. So they're changing the direction of the line of force. They can press in on your arms from the bottom and let off as you come to the top. Press in is when you're at the bottom and let off when you're at the top. And you're using additional force to make the profile better. Or the other way around of that, if you use a heavier dumbbell, so let's say the same person, the same level of strength, they can grab a 30-pound dumbbell, so it's a little bit more appropriate load down here, but they can't get it up, then your spotter would help you that last little bit. So that's a way to adjust, essentially changing the direction the force is applied, when force is applied, is changing the exercise's resistance profile. So that's the ways that you could modify, again, for knocking 2 out of 3, everybody can do it with a bench and a dumbbell and still make it a pretty decent exercise. If you want to go all 3 out of 3 without a cable, you need a spotter. The next option, which I hate and I don't do just for convenience, is lying on a side. So literally if you're on an incline bench, let's say 45 degrees is a pretty good angle, you're lying on your side and doing lateral raises. This improves the profile. So there's now tension from the bottom. Here's where it's going to be the heaviest, and as you come up to the finish, it's going to drop off a little bit. It's not that the bench is still stable, so it keeps things strict, but kind of smushing yourself from the side. Sometimes it gets your shoulder blades in a weird spot. Sometimes this becomes harder to manage. But it is a better profile. It is good for alignment. It is decent bracing. So those would be like my number, of my top 2, which I'm going to get to finally in a minute. Those would be where I put those on the list. Is you could add them somewhere as 4, 5, 6, decent exercises still as well too. The main reason I don't like this one is because it takes twice as long. You guys know for certain body parts, especially where I think pacing is important, I hate going single arm when I have the option of going both arms at the same time, just because it's more efficient. So for the reasons that you'll see, the next 2 are my favorite. So again, the one that you'll hear me explain obviously in good detail in my video is 100% my go-to for the reasons of alignment, for the reasons of profile, and for the reasons of bracing, I think it's unbeatable. Again, you'll see there's even cuffs on the wrists. That's the only thing I'm going to talk about in the video. And it just takes your hands out of it. If you don't have cuffs, absolutely you can do them with handles. But when you actually try comparison, doing working sets both ways, if you're just taking, that's where I'd kind of put in the component of bracing, is taking something out of your hand and going with your wrist, especially for shoulder raises, I would argue takes another, like a weak link of the chain out. So you don't have to worry about your grip fatigue. You can just focus on fatiguing your side delts. So I don't want to say that I invented these two exercises, especially the first one, because it seems like someone should have done this. But all I'll say is I had never seen anyone do this before. And I'd never done it before myself, before kind of just thinking about the parameters of how could you make a lateral raise better. And it just seemed like, God, man, this is so simple. So you'll see this one I do on any dual cable machine will be fine. Like a functional trainer, Free Motion makes them. The one I'm using might be like a, I don't know, Star Trek or something, but everybody makes them. Or you could use Life Fitness has they have a dual cable as well too, but they have a seated station on a row where it's a dual row. You could also use that station, attach the cuffs to that. I always tend to cross them because it's just a little bit of a better profile. Otherwise, it's very similar, too similar to what you would have with a dumbbell raise. So again, I don't want to say I invented them. I'm going to say that I'd never seen anyone do them ever before, and then I started doing them. And the thing that's, you're always going to have somebody say, there's just emotional attachment. You just think free weights have to be better because you've heard it for so long. But if you really just sit and marinate on the principles for a while, it's hard to argue. And I mean, I like dumbbells as much as everybody, and I still use them. And then the last thing that I'll say is you'll still have people that kind of watch this. I don't want to do it. It looks different. People are going to think I'm reinventing the wheel. Whatever. The thing I can say is I've never taken someone through this and not have them kind of have their eyes open, being like, oh my gosh, like I've never... Once you feel it, so you can see he did a post on it recently. People were asking back if I don't... One of my good friends, Jordan Peters, who's an amazing bodybuilder. He's freaking massive. His delts are the size of most human heads. This is a movement that I got him doing, I don't know, maybe a year ago or something, or less than that. And he literally says he'll never do a dumbbell lateral raise ever again. I've had Hunter Labrada loves these. I've had Dana Lynn do these and Rob do these. And everybody I've ever had do these, they're like, oh yeah. So there's always that thing of like, people are going to look at you like you're reinventing the wheel or doing something different, or it takes a teeny bit longer to set up than just grabbing a pair of dumbbells. I get it. But the thing you really have to do before you knock this is do them right, do them hard. There's nowhere in this video I talk about doing these light. There's nothing about a cable that means you should do them light. Once you get good at these, you can load the shit out of them. I mean, if you really think about how much weight you're doing on these, I'm going to have some stronger guys, doing upwards of 40-pound plus with cables, which is basically like the equivalent. Obviously, it's 40 pounds is 40 pounds, 40 actual pulling pounds of force. And the difference is a 40-pound dumbbell is only hard right here. This is 40 pounds that is literally never crossing through the shoulder joint, so applying constant force through that shoulder joint the entire time. So again, that's the kind of the nail in the coffin. Is the people that would knock this exercise or say that they're just going to stick with what's always worked and all that stuff, I guarantee they've never done it. And I guarantee they've never done it right, or they've never done it hard. Once you take someone through this and I fucking blast somebody, it's, again, you're going to be converted if there's something to be converted to. And then the second one that's on here, again, I won't talk in too in depth about, but it's a really cool exercise as well too. Again, I put this one up in 2016 at some point in time. If you went way back on my Instagram, if you creeped all the way back there. And this is a great one too. I don't use this as much because I use the first one so much because it's so damn good. Why would I use this one? So even on this one, my number one is my number one by a long shot. This one, you lose a little bit of bracing. Could you turn the bench around and could you press into it a little bit? But then sometimes you get a little bit of an issue with the cables running into stuff and blah, 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 whatever. And with the amount of load, putting your feet onto that platform is not hard to keep yourself pressed back in there and locked in that way. And you still have the bench as a gauge, obviously, to make sure your shoulder blades are staying nice and still. The one very cool advantage of this machine, or this exercise, is it takes it all the way back here. And I think that's a fully shortened side delt. And again, I'm not going to say... I'm pretty safe to say I invented it. I've never seen anybody do this exercise for, again, exactly this way, and again, for delts. And most people I've never really seen train their side delts here. So again, I hadn't seen this when I did it. And again, the unique thing about this one is it loads the side delt in a fully shortened position, which you'll see me talk about on the previous exercise. I like more for activation, and that's where I use it really to kind of wake up that side delt. I don't generally have to load it there. The reason I put this exercise as number 2 is because the load is still appropriate and very heavy through these lengthened and mid ranges, and it drops off significantly as you come back here. So from all those things, alignment is great, the profile is awesome, and bracing is still pretty darn good. So it's a great exercise, and I still do it sometimes, but it's one of those things, once you've done the first exercise, you've trained the delt through 90% of its contractile range, and where I'd argue it's capable of growing the most, you're just going to feel like, well, where would I place this exercise after that point? But you'll see I even offer like a nice little superset where, again, I still think it's kind of missing that fully, or is as fully lengthened of a delt as you can get without kind of going through your body. So if you do this as a superset, right as I show in the next video, you can see where you can overload that lengthened position as well too, where you didn't quite finish it. So these would be my top 1 is number 1 by a long shot. Number 2, is very close, just kind of a little off for bracing and not quite as stable. And really just some of it's semantics of spotting someone, how hard I can make someone work on it. Everything else is so locked in on the other one. It's by far, it's fucking awesome. So again, number 1 by a long shot. Number 2 is still a great exercise, absolutely worth putting in your rotation. But I'm kind of the guy, if I can have one exercise that gets the job done for side delts, that's it. So to answer any questions, yes, lots of the time, this is the only exercise I do for side delts because it's such a good exercise. Anything else would either be inferior or redundant of a range I've already adequately loaded, in my opinion. And again, the semantics of how much, whatever, I generally do anywhere from 2 to 3 working sets of this exercise. And I like to add in drop-down sets and all that kind of stuff. Drop-down sets and drop sets and whatever, anything to make this fill in a lot of density, a lot of reps in a short period of time to make it horrible. So hopefully all that makes sense. I've got lots and lots of questions about this exercise, so hopefully the next video will really help clarify it even further. I incorporated one working set, my good friend, an occasional training partner, Bryce Baum, taking me through it exactly how I like to do a working set. As you'll see, I've got a decent amount of weight on those stacks, and I'm not even a very strong human being. But again, just if you're learning it and you're doing 5 pounds to learn it, great. But the whole point of every single exercise is once you've learned it, once you feel it, once you have control, once you've got a good ironed-in form, is load it with absolutely as much weight as that muscle can tolerate for a given rep range, and then train your spotter. Again, if you watch Bryce spot me on this one, it's pretty apparent there's no way in hell I would have got out. I couldn't get as much out of a set without a spot like he provided. And so watch how he's spotting, watch how he's applying force, watch how he's helping me keep the reps consistent and not go to shit. And that's just a great way to take it all the way. So I included one working set in there as well, with the idea of, again, me not being a very big or strong person, the kind of weight that you can actually use on this ultimately if you get good at it and lock it in stone. And then that second one is my second place. And then hopefully, obviously, you watch through if you want to know where dumbbell raises and all that fit in. Again, I grew my delts decently. If you really look, when I started incorporating this exercise 2 years ago, I honestly would attribute my delts were probably one of my best body parts to come up from 2016 to 2018 to the present. And I honestly attribute this exercise to the biggest portion of their growth is from, and that time from 2016 through now is when I stopped doing traditional dumbbell lateral raises. I do these entirely. And I've had the same thing happen again. Results are all that matters. Look at Jordan Peters. Look at what he said happened to his delts over the course of the last 6 months or so, not doing one dumbbell lateral raise ever, and replacing it entirely with this exercise. And if you haven't, go look him up, look at his Instagram. I'm not kidding. His delts are the size of a small human child. And because someone's going to say, yes, I've used this exercise with everyone. This works. Any exercises that fits this parameter for natural athletes arguably works better than for enhanced athletes, because you just need to you don't have as much margin for error. So again, I've used the crap out of this exercise. The people I train delts are the most, of course, guys and bodybuilders, but delts, I would argue, are the second, if not the most important body part for female competitors, especially figure competitors. So this is a favorite of mine for, like, if you see some of the girls that before I kind of stopped working with competitors over the past couple of years, Nikki's one of them, but there's quite a few. If you look at some of their delt transformations, it would literally be like their delt workouts would start here. I'd run them into the ground there for 15 minutes, and then we do some other stuff after that. But again, yes, so it works amazing for everyone. Should go without saying, but I'm going to say it anyway. Amazing for natural athletes as well, too. If anything, arguably better, because their margin for error is less. So as always, hope this helps. If you're looking for more stuff like this, more tips, again, I've got at least 10, 15 different delt workouts incorporating this exercise, fully written up with videos like this, audio like this. That's where this next clip comes from. It's from my site. So if you haven't checked that out, hypertrophycoach.com. If you like this stuff, and if you're into it, be sure to check out that site. But I will be continuing this series. Again, ultimately, I will get through every single body part, including every head of the delt and then every other muscle in the body. So thank you guys, as always, for watching. I'm going to still keep trying to pump these out consistently. If anyone's remotely concerned for my personal life, which I wouldn't be if I were you, I've just been a little inconsistent because my wife is 39 weeks pregnant, so we've literally been like doctor's appointments, seems like every other day, and just kind of on baby watch right now. Just the whole thing revolves around obviously caring for our 2 current children, and trying to get ready for this one. So anyway, keeping as consistent as I can until that baby's out in our world and in our routine, and then back in a little bit of better of a groove. So again, I hope these help, guys. Appreciate you. So moving on to lateral cuff raises. Hopefully you guys have seen me do this exercise a billion times, explained it 1,000 times, but just the quickest recap. The biggest advantage in my opinion is the profile. So meaning if you look where the cables cross, unless that cable is lined up straight in line with my shoulder joint, there's still tension. So unlike a dumbbell lateral raise, there's a ton of tension here where you're still fairly strong. And as you come to the top, it actually drops off. That cable gets a little closer to the shoulder joint, so it gets a little lighter. So again, people always talk about full range of motion training. Full range of motion is important, but only as important as the load for that range of motion is appropriate. So meaning when I'm doing a dumbbell lateral raise, there's no challenge here. I can just sit here and swing this thing all day long, and it's only really hard here. So doing something like a cable, I can train through that same full range of motion, but instead of only maybe 30 degrees of the range of motion for a dumbbell being beneficial, here the entire 90-ish degrees range of motion is beneficial. And then aside from that, looking for cues, one of my quickest and easiest things I like to warm up here is doing them seated upright. You'll see I come to this position here. I come to this position because when you externally rotate the shoulder joint and you come into this abducted position, it basically creates more room in the shoulder joint. So this is probably a fully shortened side delt as opposed to here where you're gonna run out of range with the GH joint. So instead of running out here, open up, get to that fully shortened position. I don't find it the most valuable position to load heavily, but I incorporate it almost all the time just to get those fibers in that position, and it really helps me warm up. And then you'll see when I line to the motion, the nice part is just find your comfy spot. So I have a lot of people where I'll see them, one, don't bend your elbows a lot. I'll see people as they come up into the raise, they're bending their elbows more. Aside from basically making it less torque or less load at your shoulder joint, you're starting to add in the component of internal external rotation where your external rotators have to work more than they should. So find a fixed position at the elbows, and the best cue I can give is think out. So when I'm lying on my back, I'm trying to push my hands towards the walls as far as I can, as opposed to thinking up towards my head. And then from there, find your comfy slot. So you kind of see where I am. This isn't exact, but somewhere from here to here is where you're going to want to be in the top position. You don't want to be coming way up here where it's starting to turn a little bit more into a front raise. So I still say straight out to the side. But if there's a difference of comfort from here to here, again, when I'm lying on my side, just kind of find where it's comfortable. Focus on contracting that side delt as hard as you can and train that position.
Attaboy, attaboy. sure all that negative gel. I'll let it out, man. Make it hard, make it hard. Good, buddy. Keep working that negative. Finish. Attaboy. Come on, come on. We got more. Let's go. Yep. One rep. Come on. Stay tight here. Let's go. Work through that concentric. Finish that top of your strong, buddy. Come on. Attaboy. Very good. Ooh. Nice. Ooh.
Thank you. All right, guys. So apologize for the screen here, but this one's going back to 2016 out of the vault to show you this one. So again, just a couple cues here. Thinking wide and out, so reaching my hands towards the outside walls, pushing them as far as I can, not thinking back, shoulder blades relatively still, not letting them move up and down, a little bit of back and forward isn't the end of the world. I'm driving my feet in that bench, so you're not seeing if my shoulders or my upper back comes on and off that bench at all. It's going to be coming from my torso moving and not from my side delts. So again, this one is going to get that delt in that fully short and fully contracted position. You'll see as I come through the motion, that cable gets closer to my shoulder joint. So there's still room to play here as far as the bench forward, the bench backwards, whatever. And then I would argue that exercise doesn't overload a more lengthened position of the side delt. So here's what you do. You extend the set, you walk forward, and just take whatever you've got left in that position. And again, showing cuffs on here because, again, just taking the hand out of the equation, I think is always a good option. So as always, hope these help, guys.